Like I said, the name of that song is Rise Up. Give it up again for Margaret Owens. Wow. The rap section alone, that was like awesome. You know, because I'm like a king at rap. Yeah. So I would like to start this morning off with a story. I'd like to tell you a story of when I was 7 years old. And I was with my brother, who at the time was 9 years old, my cousin, Butchie, that should have been a precursor, Butch, who was 10 years old, and his brother, Paddy Dan, because we were all Irish, he was 9 years old. So it was me, 7, no, he was 8, my brother was 9, and Butch was 10. 7, 8, 9, 10, the four of us. So there are the four of us. Now, we grew up in Philadelphia. We grew up in downtown Philadelphia. My parents both grew up in literally downtown Philadelphia, right by the Franklin Institute, right by Betsy Ross's house, where the Independence Hall. We were surrounded by history growing up. But we were just these little kids growing up in this, urban city with a lot of rubble and stuff going on, because that city was just being really built over again. And this one Sunday after dinner, my cousin Butch and my brother both decided that we would go outside of the boundaries of where we were supposed to go. We were going to walk past 21st Street and go towards the Philadelphia Art Museum and the Schuylkill River. And we would cross down to the Schuylkill River and hang out down there, and we weren't allowed there. And then climb up this hill to the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum, or better known as Rocky's Steps. But Rocky hadn't happened yet. I think he was probably just born as well. So we're standing there at Rocky's Steps, at the Art Museum steps, and my brother had this challenge to all of us. He was like, all right, I want to see how high we're willing to go, because here's the thing. At that time, the Art Museum had a lot of dangerous people hanging out at the top of the Art Museum steps. There were a lot of people that would live up there. And we were all really scared, I was going to say. We were all scared of it. And so my brother said, let's just see. So I think my brother ran up about 10 steps and then ran back down. And so this happened, and then it was my turn. And this is who I have always been. First of all, I was considered the weakling. I was very skinny. I didn't play any sports. They were all football players, and I was like, can I take tap class? So they kind of didn't really regard me as one of them. And so I stood at the bottom of those steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum, and I just started climbing. And then faster and faster, I passed where Tommy stopped. Yeah, this is where Paddy Dan stopped. And of course, Butch, who had to go the highest, that's where he stopped. And I just kept going, and they're all going, Jimmy, get down there, no. And I just kept going. I went all the way to the top, and then I decided to go around this little building at the top and hide so they couldn't see me. And I thought, there you go. Now, as I was hiding behind this little thing, I could see the encampments of people, and they were kind of all just like, what's this little snot-nose doing up here? But I just stood there, and I was kind of frozen. And then I thought, it's probably time to go down. So I turned around, and I went to the top of the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum. I didn't do this, but I did stand there. And my brother and everybody, they were all like screaming and like waving and like, ah. And I just stood there. And I remember as I was putting this talk together and this story popped into my head, I remembered I felt like I was so high. So on top of the world that I had proven my masculinity. I'd proven I could go further than anybody else went. I could have been killed, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was like, yeah. And then I just very slowly walked down the steps. My head got higher. I think I grew about 4 inches that day. And I just kept taller and taller. And I got down there, and they were all like, what did you do? Where did you go? And they were like, and then we instantly went home because now they were afraid they were going to lose me or I was going to do something else crazy. From that moment on, they respected me. They saw me as the crazy kid who was going to do whatever they asked me to do, which we all know I don't do whatever people ask me to do. But in that moment, I was really high. And the title of my talk today is this: How high can you go? And as I was putting this talk together and that story came to me, I really started to ask myself, this theme this month, Rise Up. We've done a lot with this theme over the month, but I had to ask myself, am I still in my life climbing those stairs? Am I still climbing them out of defiance, or am I climbing them because I know who I am? And that's what I want to ask you today. Are you willing to rise up from the truth of who you are and not out of adversity, or not because something else has happened and you're in reaction mode to it? Because I've asked a lot of questions this month in terms of rise up. I have the biggest question I have is, what makes me rise up? What is it in me? What was it in that 7-year-old? I actually can answer that. What it was inside of me then was I had to prove myself. I didn't know who I was. I only knew who I was based on what you saw me to be. And if you saw me to be this skinny little 7-year-old who was very different from everybody else in the neighborhood, that was a difficult thing to carry. And I wasn't sure about that. I didn't know what that meant, why the boys didn't relate to me. The girls liked me a lot, but the boys, they didn't relate to me. And it was always weird, that kind of growing up that way. But that night, on a Sunday night, we'd all gone to the cathedral in the morning, and then we'd all had the big dinner in the house. My parents lived on the same block, so their parents both lived 5 doors down from each other their whole life. So we would always come together. So that day, late afternoon on a Sunday, I think I started the journey of realizing that my job in life was always to climb whatever's in front of me. Whatever is before me, it's mine to climb up, mine to rise up to. And I've done it my whole life. I've spent my whole life rising up. I went to New York to do something, and I did it against all odds, and certainly against what people thought of. And just recently, I was in a group, and I was watching a girl who was really amazingly talented girl, and I saw her family around her, and I watched them all hold her in an understanding of who she was that was not what I see. I see this girl as amazing, talented, successful. Any minute she's going to skyrocket. And the family around her are like, yeah, she still thinks she's going to do something in the world. It was just watching that, I had this reaction inside. I was like, wow, that's what my life was like growing up. Even when I did move to New York, the response, other than from my father who said, go get it, but the rest of the family was like, okay, you'll be back. It's like out of Hamilton. You'll be back. Wait and see. Speaking of Hamilton, I have a quote, not from the musical, from Alexander Hamilton. He says this: there is a certain enthusiasm in freedom that makes human nature rise up above itself. So rising up actually gives you the opportunity to free yourself up. If you are willing to rise up above all the stuff that could possibly hold you down. Now just take a moment and look at your life. Where in your life are you being held down? Where in your life don't you feel free? And I can tell you, when I asked myself last night, did you live today well? I had to ask myself, was there anything today that I perhaps did not want to do that I did? And my answer was no. There's nothing that I didn't want to do, because everything that was mine to do yesterday, I set up. So I ask you to take a look at your life and ask yourself, are you free? Because when we rise up, the freedom that we experience from rising, and I like that he says this, there is a certain enthusiasm and freedom that makes a human nature rise up above itself. We are still living in this dualistic understanding that human and divine are separate, and that there's my divine self that I should rise up to. No, every aspect of yourself is divine. It's just a simple question. Where do you want to live? Do you want to live at the top of rocky stairs? Or do you want to live at the bottom, always looking up, wondering what's going to happen? So that's what I'd like to take us to at the end of this month. Anonymous, one of the best writers in the world, wrote this: rise up, for the view is better from the top. Pretty simple, but true. The view is much better when I rise above all of the minutia of my life and stand at the top of rocky stairs, feeling as if I am the height of energy. I am a 7-year-old boy who's done what an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and 10-year-old couldn't do. I still remember feeling that. It's like, nah, I made it to the top of the stairs. And I love that I was mischievous enough to hide and let them think I'd been murdered. Because you got to learn the lessons if you're going to live down there. That's how it works. So are we willing today? How many of you are willing today to rise up? Yes. Okay, good. And if you haven't raised your hand, let me keep going. So we started this month with Easter and Passover. And then I moved on to the next week of moving mountains and the power of your imagination. That you can move mountains. You just don't have to go and dig them out. You move them in your mind. That's how we move mountains. And then last week, we explored the voice within, those things that are nudging you to rise up. And I talked last week about being in hibernation and, letting ourselves just subdue ourselves for a year. And now we're coming back out. And it's an interesting thing having some people here in the sanctuary because it's like, oh yes, I remember that energy. But we've been creating other energies. We've been creating a lot, and a lot of good has come out of this past year. And so it's time for us to awaken. It's time for us to step out. But it's also time for us, and I want to say this really clearly, not to just go back to the way it was. Because if we just go back to the way it was, then we're going to get exactly what we used to get. And I can tell you, I think every one of us has the opportunity here and certainly the responsibility here to bring us further, to take us to the next level and the next level, to literally climb up that stairway and be standing at the top saying, that is behind us. Now, what do we want to do with this? And for that, I go to Ernest Holmes. Because the title of my talk, How High Can You Go?, is a personal question to each one of you. In whatever area you're working on, how high can you go in your health? How high can you go in your finances? How much money, how much money can you attract into your life? Notice that I'm not saying how much money can you make. Because I don't know about you, I'm not interested in trying to make money, but I'm very happy to attract it in. Because it's who you are, it's who I am. And how many relationships can you expand, make better? Make marriages better, make parenting better, make friendships better. There's so much we can do moving out of this hibernation into a new understanding. So Ernest Holmes said this. When I say how high can you go, he says this. Our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which, of itself, is without limit. Now, I've used that quote 1,000 times. I even knew where to go and look for it. Our belief sets the limit of a demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limit. So your beliefs, everything you're sitting here today believing about your life, about the world, every AEP, already established premise of life that you hold creates your life. You're demonstrating based on your beliefs. That we know. But we have to start getting clearer about the fact that principle itself is without limit. And yet, I think we have risen up only so far. I think we all believe that there is a limit to how high we can rise. I talked about it last week or I don't even know when I talked about it because now I'm doing so many different events. But I talked about it at somehow this week, about Kevin and I driving by that $7 million home in Palm Desert. And he was like, well, I'd love to have that one. And I said to him, well, then we need to aim at that one. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, $7 million. I'm going to buy a $7 million home. I'd have to have the people to work it and all that stuff. But I really started thinking, oh, I have a financial limit. Now, it's not the financial limit based on my bank account, by the way, because I can tell you how much I can afford. There's a big difference between rising up to the truth of who you are and paying attention to what you can afford. Because what I can afford on paper is certainly not what I am equal to in consciousness. So where are your limits? Where do you put the limit? Where's your ceiling? Where do you put a ceiling so that as you rise up, you can't go any further? I often think of what my brother and Butchie and Patty Dan, what they were thinking, why they stopped where they stopped on those stairs. Why did they stop? Fear? Well, that's the age-old answer, isn't it? Fear. I'm afraid I can't go any further. I can't do this. That's what those people do. I can't go that high. Fear, something inside of you. And you know what that is? It's nothing but a belief. There's some belief in you that you can only reach this level on those stairs of the Philadelphia Art Museum. You can't go to here. But I went all the way up and around the corner and hid. And then came back down again. And then took my place in the world of prosperity, success, and infamy. And I joke, but I don't. Because I look back and I even see that day and days like that as days where I took off. Where I said, you know what? Oh my God, I won't use the word I'm about to use. You kids, you could have done a lot better, but you didn't. So I'm talking to all of us now, all of us as kids. We could have done a lot better. We could live in a world today where people are equal. You know, someone asked me the other day what I thought of Black Lives Matter. and I knew who was asking me, and I said, well, why? What should I think of it? And they were like, well, you know, it's just white lives matter too. I was like, I don't think that one thing says the other thing isn't true. I said, I believe what we're saying in Black Lives Matter is there's an inequality in our country that we haven't dealt with yet. That's all this means. Yes, white lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. But until all lives matter equally, we are going to have things to do. We are going to have to work it out. And this person was sort of okay with it, but said, yeah, but I don't like the way we're working it out. I said, it's been worked out this way for all of time and eternity. I said, but it's time to do it more peacefully, more lovingly. I said, and actually it starts by each one of us rising up above separation and all of this down here and seeing the truth. Because from up here, you don't see color. You don't see sex. You don't see sexuality or gender. You just see God. And it's everywhere, fully present. That's the rising up we need to do. So here's what I got from Ernest Holmes. So that quote is the quote I usually stop at. I read that quote and I stop. Our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limit. But he goes on, he says, it is ready to fulfill everything because it is infinite. Very next sentence. Yeah, your belief sets the limit to what you can have, but it's ready to fulfill everything in your desire wheel. Everything. Without limit, he says, because it is infinite. And then he says, next sentence. So it is not a question of its willingness, nor of its ability. It is entirely a question of our own receptivity. That's it. So here you sit today. First of all, thank you for being back here. And to all of you at home watching, thank you for watching. I think we've all come here today to really hear this one question. How ready are you to receive the truth about who you are? How ready are you? Makes me very emotional to even ask this question. I still struggle with it. I know most people think I wake up every day and say, hi, God, and live the day out. Because people have said, you're so good with this I am God thing. I said, I'm only good with it because I get it. I know it's true. It's been taught since the ancient wisdom days. It has been taught who we are. That we are this divine energy. We are this creative impulse. We are the I am. I am that I am. So how ready are you to receive the truth of who you are? That's really all we've come here to know today. That's all we ever come here to know. How much more of my identity can I rise up to in existence? And then use, as Ernest Holmes says here, use it. Because the creative essence of the universe is infinite in scope. You want that $7 million home up on the hills in Palm Springs, I think it was. Palm Springs, or maybe it was Cathedral City, I don't remember. Big house on a hill. $7 million. You want that home? Great. Go get it. You are infinite in scope. If you really want it, it is available. except I don't think it's for sale. But if you really want it, something like it is available. So that's the question. How receptive are you to really know who you are? Not sort of, not intellectually get it, not be fine with it when the minister says it from the stage or still grappling with it maybe. How willing are you to receive the truth? Because it's, as it said in the Bible, the truth shall set you free. And there is only one truth for you to be set free by. And that is your spiritual identity, who you are. So, you and I right now, as a species, are standing at the foot of Rocky Steps. We're all just right there. And I think we are kind of equivalent to a 7-year-old's mind. Mine was pretty provocative even at 7. But I think we're all right there. We're in the immaturity of our divine human selves. And notice I will never just say we're in the immaturity of our human selves. I can never separate my human self from the truth of who I am. And that's one thing we have to get out of the habit of. Talking about our human self and our divine self, we need to really combat duality and rid ourselves of the understanding that there's anything other than my perfect divine self, making choices sometimes that are not good for my own life. So here we are. We are this 7-year-old consciousness standing at the foot of the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum. Now let's take away my brother and my cousins, my mother, my sister, all of it. Let's take everybody away. Let's take away everything that's been done to us, for us, through us. Let's get rid of all of our yeah buts and the, oh, well, you know what happened. Let's get rid of our stories. Let's get rid of all of it and go back to that staircase. And just look. I don't know if you all know what it looks like, the Philadelphia Art Museum. If you've seen Rocky, you sort of remember it. It's pretty majestic. And the Schuylkill River, where we went first, is wrapped all around it. It's all on the sides of it, and it's amazing. I was on a crew team for my college there. It was amazing. So there we are, standing in this beautiful place. That's where you are right now. That's who you are, and that's where you are. You have this immature, and I don't use that in a negative sense, just this immature, burgeoning consciousness that is ready, willing, and able to know itself. To know itself so dearly, so clearly, so fully, that with every step, we get stronger and stronger and stronger. And we start. And here's the thing about those steps in life. You're not going to arrive. You are not going to arrive at the art museum. You are going to arrive every step at another version of yourself. And then another. And they're going to be better and better and stronger and stronger. You're going to know more. Your heart's going to open wider. Your soul is going to be fuller. The wisdom of the universe is going to pulsate through you. And every time you go to that next step, there's another one that pops up. Because you are infinite. Because I am infinite. We are infinite in scope. The universe is going to continue to emerge and continue to expand. It's going to constantly evolve. So here we are. Conversely, you can also stay there at the bottom of that staircase. You can stay there. You can even walk over here, pay attention to everything that's happened in your life so far. Or you can even walk over here and daydream and make all plans that really have no substance underneath them. It really is up to you. But I guarantee you, as we step out of this year of hibernation, that if you would just be willing to open your heart and be receptive, really, truly be receptive to who you are, to what is in here, and just take the next step and the one after that, I guarantee you, just like Luke Skywalker, you may even start a step and not have a step to step onto. I guarantee you it'll be there. Just don't go to that place where we go so often, which is the fear of the unknown. I don't know how I'm going to continue to evolve, but I do know that I'm going to continue to evolve. And I also know that if I could run up those stairs at 7, I can run up those stairs today at this age. And so can you. So my question to you at the end of this Rise Up month is, I asked you earlier, are you ready to rise up? Now I'm going to ask you this. Are you ready and willing to receive what happens when you rise up and stay there? Yes? And so am I. Namaste.